that, I'd like to bring out the representatives from this year's comedy nominees. From The Big Bang Theory, Steve Molaro. From Girls, Judd Apatow. From Louie, Blair, Breard. From Modern Family, Danny Zuker. From Veep, Armando. And from 30 Rock, Jack Burditt. So obviously, I kind of wanted to start with Judd just on one point, which is, things have changed so much in the last few years. If you had done Freaks and Geeks now, would that have ended up on Netflix, been picked up after it was canceled by Netflix? Would that show have actually ended, do you think, as sort of prematurely as it did?
Well, when we did Freaks and Geeks, there weren't too many shows like that happening. We were kind of a reaction to a lot of shows about teenagers where they were all very beautiful and they were soap opera-like, and Paul Feig really wanted to show the torment of his high school experience. And people just looked at us like we were crazy the whole time, and we just felt like this is going to end any second. To the point where we shot the finale 3 or 4 episodes before we were canceled because we just assumed we were going to get canceled at any moment. Think about how paranoid that is to shoot your finale in the middle of the first season. So we looked at it like a mini series, and yes, there's a part of me that thinks it's very sad that we weren't around at a time where people support ambitious storytelling in the same way. And I'm just shocked at what a moment this is, that the economics of television is pushing people to go deeper and do more challenging work. It's really insane. I mean, there's too many shows to watch right now. And what's going to happen in 3 years? How many great shows will there be? And how will we go to work?
Well, we've heard a lot about the golden age of drama, certainly now, and there's also a tremendous amount of diversity in comedy. But would you, and anyone or all of you can jump in on this, do you feel that comedy has essentially creatively kept pace with the level we're seeing on drama right now, or is it a notch or two behind?
I don't think we're as good. I think,
I'm kind of curious what Vince has to say on this.
Yeah. It's not as strong, and what are we going to do?
I'm going to say
fuck drama. What are you trying to say, man?
I was going to say no. I think I think a lot of the originality of the form is taking place in drama now, and comedy's kind of walking up to the fact that I think we're slightly cursed by the fact that we've got to be funny. I mean, I always envy people in drama who can have a car pull up and music playing, and you just see the feet get out the car and go up the steps and go in, and that's a minute. And I'm just thinking, but it's not funny. And if I shot that, I'd then cut it. It'd be the first thing to go. And I think we're kind of cursed by the fact that we feel obliged for it to be funny. And the trick or the challenge is to convince ourselves that just because we're being funny, we're not actually belittling anything, and actually, therefore, we can take on bigger, more, perhaps potentially more serious subjects in our comedy, which is something I think Gills does tremendously. And and just because it's a comedy and because there are funny moments around it, we're not denigrating that as an issue or as a topic. So maybe actually the challenge is there to be a bit more provocative in terms of the subject matter in our comedies.
See, that's what I was trying to say. So
that's not what you were trying to say.
Yes.
You were insulting me directly. No, I think what's happened is that the dramas are all funny. I mean, that's a funny panel. Those shows are all hilarious, but they get to be hilarious when they want to be. But I think that's what's made these dramas so great. Is a lot of them they're dark comedies.
Well, maybe we should do the reverse and just have a car pulling up and for 30 minutes.
I agree with that. That there's. And because I work on Louie, there's so much drama in what we do on Louie. Sometimes it feels limiting to say this is just a comedy and this is just a drama. The form things have changed, and we've been allowed to do more creative things and go deeper. And there's so much more creativity going on in television where you really can. I mean, in our first season of Louie, we were doing very classic Louie sketch comedies. He was building the episodes out of disparate pieces and putting them together. And by season 3, we were doing 2-episode arcs and 3-episode arcs. And there was more depth and more ability to explore just themes in humanity in comedy, under the banner of comedy. But I often think, why is it so narrow? Why is it, oh, that DP can't shoot comedy, that person can't write drama? We're all being allowed to go deeper and have more creative expressions in whatever form they're coming in. Lena, Louie, 30 Rock, all of these shows, all of the dramas as well.
I also think that cable really helped raise the bar years ago on dramas, and comedy have been slower to come to cable and everything like that. And I do think now that cable's kind of embracing comedy. It's helping, and we're catching up. We're not there, but we're getting closer.
Sometimes we write something we think is hilarious, and then we do it in front of the audience, and it turns out we wrote a drama. So, and then we have to fix it on the spot.
I did a drama briefly when I thought I was never going to be hired for a comedy again, and right around the writer's strike. And I remember writing that first drama script. And in comedy, especially in network comedy, you don't get out of a scene without something called a blow. That's like the big joke, and then you go to commercial or to the next scene. And it was very surreal for me to. I remember I sent it to some of my comedy writing friends. I said, "What do you think of this blow?" And the blow was, "He's dead." It's the easiest thing in the world to do. Comedy's hard.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I was just going to say there is that thing of the final judge is, do people laugh? That's all it boils down to in the end, isn't it? It's no matter how well written or well lit or well performed, if they're not laughing, something is wrong.
Well, I wanted to ask because Steve, you do it in front of an audience, and I've seen. I mean, I've been to tapings. You will stop it and rework it if it isn't working. It was interesting to hear Matt say on the previous panel he doesn't change anything on the set. I wondered, one, how often that actually ends up happening, and two, for those of you who are working in single camera, how often do you get on the set and you do it and you just go that says, boy, that just isn't working.
I mean, I love that rush. I loved it in multi-camera. Jack and I used to work together on Just Shoot Me, and there was a visceral thrill when an audience, when it was crickets, much like this, and but then the writers all huddle, and to be the guy who comes up with that joke in the, that's our macho. I mean, I can't throw a ball. That's my thing. And so.
But you kick ass on Twitter, though.
Yeah, so I do. I kick ass on Twitter. But that's that's where I finally found a place for my skill set. But we did an episode in my first season on Modern Family, and we were out on a location, and it was the middle of the night. And we had an emotional, funny scene that wasn't working, and we were 2 hours into overtime. And myself and the co-creator, Chris Lloyd, we just looked at each other, nothing's working. And we went to this we built a campfire, and we had a legal pad out there. And we took a half hour and wrote a scene. And it's arguably one of the better scenes I've ever been a part of on Modern Family. So I like the excitement of it.
Steve, did you want to talk about that?
I agree with what you were saying. We are not athletic folk. And that is, those moments when you're huddled up really are the closest to sports that I have in my life. But just the other night, we had a Bernadette Wallowitz scene that just didn't work, except now it's not working in front of 200 people live. And we're rewriting a whole scene huddled up in the moment. That's it's terrifying. It's awful.
That's
I don't recommend. I don't
terrifying.
recommend it.
So in single cam, how often are you just your gut is telling you, wow, that's not working. Let's redo that.
Well, it's difficult. In Veep, the writing is a continuous process anyway. The writers are always there as we rehearse it, and we always free it up and loosen it up in the rehearsals. And then the writers come to the set, and we shoot it like a rehearsal, and we encourage everyone to free it up, and then we pick it apart on set and rewrite it on set. Only because I just can't write in advance. I just am allergic to being given too much time. So we sort of live off the adrenaline, and it means that each script goes through about 30 drafts by the time it's shot because we're continually rewriting it. I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, though. It's I'm 26 and I look like this. You know, so it can only be done for short bursts, I'd say.
Blair?
Nothing ever changes on our set. I mean, I'm in a situation where I have the writer, the director, the actor there all at the same time. So he sort of was reminding me of Julian when he doesn't talk to anybody about changing things. There's no writer's room. It's all going on in his head. And half the time, the scripts he gives me, I read them and go, God, this is not funny at all. This is not funny. How's this going to be funny? This is our comedy. But now I know that the comedy is going to come from what's going on set and the acting that's going on. But it's directed more like a drama, which is why it's funny, I think. And we never change anything on set. I mean, it's very, very rare that Louie would change or rewrite something or restage something. I think he's lived with it for such a long time that it's kind of there for him.
As far as you mentioned it, but there are some very distinct differences between the cable shows, and I think we often tend to focus on sort of the most cosmetic stuff like language. But for the three of you who principally have been working on, or at least on here for nominated network sitcoms, what about the length? You know, what about the issue that if they've got an episode of Girls that needs to go 29 minutes and 30 seconds? It's going to go 29 minutes and 30 seconds, and you guys have been shrunk to, what, about 21 now? How does that affect your lives?
One little secret is Big Bang Theory is chronically short. Like every episode, if you added them all up, I think we probably owe people about 3 episodes worth of television for every 30 seconds in a minute we came in under.
You know, I find almost always, the expression brevity is the soul of wit, and things are greatly improved for me comically in a network comedy by that limitation. Like, I don't view it as a limitation. It's sort of this is the haiku we're doing here, and it's not to wax on my disgusting jokes on Twitter, but I've never felt like that. Keeping a joke under 140 characters ever hurt it. Like paring down like a joke that was like 300 characters, 200 to 140 characters made it tighter and better. And I think we have a challenge because on our show, we're telling 3 stories every week. We have 11 speaking roles if you count Lily, and not mentioning guest cast. So it's just that discipline of it, I think, helps with our storytelling. So.
Like, how long are your cuts?
We're pretty close. We're about 2 minutes over all the time, which is what you want to be, because you want to have some place to cut. Especially for us, it would be, we've definitely had those shows that have come in short, like 1 or 2 times, and there's nothing you can do.
We've had to go back the next week and add a scene, which actually the few times it's happened ended up being some of the most memorable scenes we've had in the show. So that part's worked out.
And then conversely, for the 3 cable shows, when you do an episode of Girls or an episode of Louie that's got a really melancholy tone to it, do you ever revisit it and think, maybe there's a place we could punch it up with a joke here, or does it really have to be organic to what's in the episodes?
Well, I have a whole different theory. I just think all comedy should be really long.
I've seen your movies.
I'm looking to add scenes. I don't want to let anything go or trim things or make it crisp. Like to hang around a while and feel it. So it's a whole different way to go. Our shows tend to get closer to 30 minutes than 22 minutes, and our first cuts are usually like high 30s or even 40, 45 minutes. And we don't really think of the show too much in terms of comedy or drama. It really is just the story of these people. And some episodes we realize, we're going for hard comedy this week, and other weeks we realize this is a little bit more of a drama, and then we'll look at the whole season and go like, are we getting a little down this season? Let's maybe try to kick it in the ass comedically on this one. But I feel like that definition of comedy and drama almost doesn't make sense anymore, because really we're just talking about time for most of these things. They're 45 minutes and we're 22 or 25 minutes.
our cuts of Veep, just because of the way we work, tend to be about 58 minutes long in the first assembly, and we try to get them down to 28. But I like that. I think it gives it a pace and a density that I like. But I actually find the time thing a help. Very often the most constructive and helpful notes I get back from HBO, once I've given them a cut which I'm happy with at 29, are suggestions for cuts. And I'm thinking, why? Why do you want to make less television for all the amount that you've paid? And actually, it works. I find there's a perfect rhythm and a perfect duration to a piece. And sometimes you can get so married to something that you won't let it go. I did a comedy film a couple of years back, and the most difficult part of the edit was losing the final 5 minutes. I wanted to get it down to set time. And once I took my 3 favorite scenes out, the film was a lot better. And I realized that I was holding on to these scenes because I liked the scenes, but they were doing nothing for the film. They were just holding it up, or they were disrupting it, or whatever. And that's been a real lesson I've learned, is actually don't overindulge, don't, be disciplined. Even though you think you've got this freedom on cable to go as long as you like, it's actually quite a nice discipline to hold at the back of your mind, to keep it tight.
I do think the trick, too, is spending so much time in editing that you hate everything by the end. So it's very painless to cut out all.
Then you cut it down to 12 minutes. Yeah.
The other thing is what was being talked about on the drama panel about the form changing, and I think Bo was talking about it, where it's looking at things in whole chunks, and not necessarily that we're at the point where we can just abolish the half hours and the hours that you have to fill because of ads or whatever the situation is, but I notice what's happened to us over 3 seasons is the stories have changed and evolved, and you start to think, well, this could go over 2 episodes, this could go over 4 episodes, and I feel like we're so lucky we've been supported tremendously by FX and allowing that to change instead of just being our 22 minutes in season 1, and then in season 2, the writing started to get longer and fill out more, and being allowed to grow and have that change and evolve and cross the lines between comedy and drama and really looking at stories. What is the story? Maybe this is only a 22-minute story. Maybe this story needs a little bit more life and breathing room. And I think a lot of us are working for networks and in situations where that's being supported, where you're really being given the freedom to have incredible creativity. This is an amazing time for...
What's that like?
We say...
But it's changed so much. I remember when we were doing, I don't know if it was Freaks and Geeks or Undeclared, but the network said, the audience only sees 1 out of 5 episodes. And so you have to make all the episodes, like you can't do an arc because they're going to get lost. And they were very strict about, don't have an ongoing story. And that's just completely gone away.
Right.
Well, you talked about the discipline that kind of the 21-minute form imposes, and I guess that does bring us to sort of the discipline of network standards too, which is this is kind of an age-old question, but when you have the right to be bluer versus actually having to finesse your way around it, is it liberating, or is there something that does force you to be more creative when you? Nobody cusses as well as Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She just doesn't. I mean, you're always going to get a laugh with that. But does it
Hear my uncle?
does it change the approach at all?
Well, it goes back to the time thing. I think it's a benefit, but it's also it can be, forgive the pun, a curse, because there's a temptation then to think if you can say anything, you then just write anything. Do you know what I mean? You're not... I always enjoy that sense of there being some kind of boundaries, even if they're artificially imposed around you, and occasionally just cross them to see what happens. But if you feel... I mean, one of the notes I give back to my writers after the first draft, because they feel so liberated about the swearing, is one of the notes I'm always giving back against some of the lines is, could there be less fucks, shits, tits, piss, dick, cock, please, against every line. Sorry about that. Because I just feel...
Grown-up crowd.
Yeah, that that kind of language can get so repetitive that it becomes meaningless. And actually, the obligation on us is to try and make it a little bit more creative and imaginative when she does swear. So I think there's just a temptation. If you're given so much leeway, you can get lazy, and therefore it's about imposing a little bit more discipline, even if it's an artificial discipline on people.
A lot of it is also driven by the audience of the show. So, like, I've been on shows where it's very aggravating that I can't say this thing because I'm showing some teenagers getting in a fight, and they don't fight. You stinker. It's very crazy. But for Modern Family, I'm very aware of we're all aware of the audience. We're all parents, and so like families tend to watch the show together. So I'm going to do a lot less dick jokes generally than I would if I knew my kids weren't watching. So
I always felt in network television it'd be great if they gave us one fuck per season, just one, and you'd really think a lot about how I'm going to use this and everything like that. And if the audience knew that too, and they're like, "Whoa, that's what they use it for. That's fantastic." Just good. Haven't been able to push that through though.
I tried to make the same deal with my wife. Professional joke, people.
I made the mistake of watching a Louie episode with my 14-year-old daughter. I don't know if you remember the Chloe Sevigny episode, which led to like a very just awkward moment. I believe I don't know if you could say this at this room, but she was. What was she doing? You say it, so I don't have to say.
Oh, she was wanking off under the table.
Yes, and is that
Masturbating.
Oh.
Herself alone at a coffee shop.
I thought that was kind of what Julianne was talking about before when he said taking it in the neck.
Yeah.
But that's different.
Might not be different.
I decided whether to shut it off or not, and I got scared. I'm like, well, I don't want to shame her like this is a terrible thing, so I just kind of white-knuckled it and didn't look at her. And we never talked of it again. And then at breakfast, she's like, Mom, that Louie was, I don't know.
Well, we have standards and practices at FX. We're sort of neither here nor there. We're a little bit the bastard stepchild. We're not, the major networks, and we're not HBO. So in season 1, I had 5 words posted up on the board. These are the words we cannot say.
What are they?
Well, we can't say fuck and fuck and fuck. And no, there are other ones that are not nice to say in public.
It doesn't make sense because we can't say things on network television because it's like free airwaves, but everyone pays for it now.
Yeah.
So basic cable, you can do it and then your kids just watch everything on YouTube. So they just walk in the other room and watch Miley Cyrus blow a wrecking ball.
So we have to edit a lot of that out. We have to edit those things out. We have to bleep them out, and there's a lot of conversation about the bleeps and the length of the bleeps, and we have long conversations with the standards and practices person at FX, not just about language, but about things that are going on in the show, conversations, acts, whatever they are. But Louie gets very particular about how he wants the word to be beeped out so that people know but she'll say, no, you can't hear the F and the K and just bleep out the and these go on and on and on, and they're long philosophical conversations about them. But
And then on network TV, you can decapitate a child.
That's right. So,
But you can't say any word.
And you can't, we had a huge conversation about the poker game where the conversation was all about, the use of the word faggot. And it was one of the ones I read, and I went, we're going to shoot this, and they're going to say no, and we will have spent the time and the money, and let's show it to her ahead of time. No way, we don't do that. We just shoot it and then go fight the battles. But I can remember standing in the woods in Staten Island in the snow with Louie on the phone, just having this conversation about why can't you use these words and talk about these things in comedy, but you can use them in drama. You can use them on television. Why can't they be used to foster conversation about them? And we won, and we got the episode in and with a few beeps, and it was one of our most talked about episodes.
I'm just curious, how much did you talk to the censors on the Melissa Leo episode?
We didn't.
Really?
we just shot it, and then we sent it into effects for them to watch, and they sat in the room and watched it, and I don't even know what happened in that room afterwards. But I think it was great that she won Best Actor for the dirtiest episode on television.
Without a doubt.
It was just so dirty.
I wanted to just pick up, since we are in the start of the new season officially. Armando, you in Variety, actually, a steal on the newsstands now. You said if you could change anything about television, it would be the pilot process, which I thought was kind of interesting. That it focuses all the attention on your first show, which is usually not your best. And I wondered how all of you felt about that. If that's because obviously we're in a period right now where everybody is reviewing pilots and writing about pilots and analyzing pilots. And do you feel that in a way that the pilot is the wrong thing to focus on for the reason that you haven't always really found your show yet?
I mean, I say that because, the pilot of Veep not only was the first episode of that, but it was the first episode of American television that I'd ever made. So it was a bit of a culture shock to realize that this process of working out what on earth the show was actually the first thing that was going to be delivered to all the critics, and the campaign was going to be based on. No, I'm sure actually if we were unhappy with it, we would have gone back and remade bits of it. But it just struck me as a kind of very strange, sort of very front-loaded process of judging something that is actually going to grow and expand over the weeks. That was it, really. But I mean, we don't have anything like the pilot season in the UK, simply because we don't work to the annual production schedule, because all our shows are more or less 6 episodes long. And therefore, as an actor or as a writer or producer, you do your season of 6 episodes, and then naturally you go on and you do something else. And then you do something else, and then you might come back to season 2 of this first thing. And so, there's a Simpsons show where Homer tries to raise money for a 7th episode of his favorite British show, which resonates so well back in the UK.
Anyone else like to weigh in?
Well, I mean, the concept of pilot season is insane and ridiculous and outdated and doesn't make any sense, and we all know it, and no one will change it, and no one knows why. And what's happening with cable is everyone's seeing that, if you gave 2 seasons of a show to somebody and say, I believe in you, that your odds of succeeding are much higher than making 45 pilots and picking up 3. And so hopefully that's changing now, because it has to change, because the collaborative process, as nice as it sounds between networks and creative people, ultimately doesn't work because people water themselves down. And if I have a cast of 6 people and I lose the fight on half of them, the show has been ruined. And so most of the shows we all love, those people didn't lose those debates. And it's not because this person's smart or that person's smart. It's just, it's a creative idea. And so if you don't hire Ed O'Neill, the show doesn't work. And we all know stories and have been through it where, like, we've been told, oh, you can't make Seth Rogen the lead of the show. We don't think he's a star. And they're wrong often, and then your show goes away and no one says, thank you for listening to me. You just don't get to do it.
All right, and also I did a panel earlier this week with a bunch of reality TV executives, and they said that
Snooze.
Well, they sent a town car. What could I do? But what was interesting was that they said that the big trend in their field, thanks to Duck Dynasty and Honey Boo Boo, is reality comedy. Basically, reality shows that approximate sitcoms.
Sorry, I'm British. What did you just say? Duck what?
Duck Dynasty.
And
It's the highest rated show on television all summer. On American television. I'm not proud of it. This is what I do for a living.
Fine, okay.
I'm sorry, but
I'm glad my visa runs out quite soon. And what's the other one? Honey
Here Comes Honey Boo Boo.
Honey Boo Boo.
Yes.
And that's about some
That's
bees?
about a Georgia.
It's basically Downton Abbey.
It's not.
Yeah.
But I wondered if, as comedy writers, does that concern you at all? Does that make you throw up in your mouths a little bit? What's your reaction to that?
Scares the hell out of me, I tell you.
I just bought the DVDs and I enjoyed them. I was on vacation in Hawaii. I sat in the room and watched Duck Dynasty and could not have been happier.
Does it feel to you? I mean, it really is. It's it's basically a kind of semi-scripted sitcom, in a way.
Is this done cheap? Is this? Or we don't have to pay for writers?
It's cheaper than your show, I'm sure.
Yes.
But yes, but it's not as cheap as it used to be because they renegotiated.
Oh, the Ducks are the Duck family. They've got an agent, they've got a manager, and yeah, okay.
We can talk offline after this, I'd say, but.
I'm kind of not worried about it. It doesn't like affect. To me, it's like everybody's gonna like. I kind of don't make a value judgment on comedy. There's stuff I want to watch, and I want my family to watch. And if you like watching something else, I have a lot of crap I watch too. So.
I don't think it doesn't feel like it's a threatening sort of encroachment. I think people will still want to see characters that aren't real with actors and people that they can relate to. And obviously that fills a need, and it doesn't feel like that's going to overtake what we're doing.
To be serious, actually, I mean, this happened in the UK about 6 or 7 years ago. There was a big splurge of these reality shows, and they did take the place of dramas and comedies for a while because network executives worked out it's far cheaper and they get viewers. So why risk a lot of money on a drama that might not work? Why pilot 5 comedies that we're unsure of? And so for a while, our schedules were full of reality shows with very self-explanatory titles like "How Thick Is My Arm" and all that kind of just
How thick was his arm?
my sister's the Pope and things like that. And they got viewers. But the good news is, after a while, people got sick of them. We've talked a lot about that viewer hunger for something substantial and thought-provoking and well-worked. So hopefully that will go away. Hopefully the ducks will die.
Or the Duck family, yes.
Oh, sorry, I didn't wish death on the family.
You believe
Really,
this is a
really
show
dark.
about ducks, don't you?
No.
And I just had 2 kind of quick lightning round questions before we wrap up. If just each of you could cite one early comedy influence, either movie or TV, given that your shows will certainly be influences on people years from now, on you, obviously.
All in the Family, I think, is still, probably the best sitcom of all time, and an enormous amount of what they did you could not do today. That's how great it was, and I wish more people were watching it now. I mean, I'm not sure if it's airing currently anywhere, but I think we all could still learn a lesson from it.
Steve, you want to?
Boy, I watched the shit out of some Happy Days when I was a kid.
I don't even know. I mean, I was watching all that stuff too growing up, all those, All in the Family and Happy Days and whatever was on TV. Watched a ton of TV. It's hard to say.
For me, I just remember being home on a Saturday night, watching Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart show. Thought those All in the Family, but like the things that were just like those white lightning moments was when I went to a movie theater as a kid, not knowing what this was going to be, and saw Airplane. Like that was like, that's possible. That's amazing. Or when the first time I saw Steve Martin, those are.
By the way, thanks to you guys, Bob Newhart finally has an Emmy, which is
great
kind of a
is
nice.
That was so cool.
So great. Oh my God.
Armando?
My big comedy influence is Woody Allen. I've always loved his films right from a kid. On television, actually, Larry Sanders Show is a big inspiration to me. That was the first comedy that didn't feel like a comedy, yet was a comedy. I love that show.
I guess the first show I remember just laughing my ass off to was Get Smart, and that was, I think that was it. So, yeah.
By the way, I saw you do, Judd, a one-on-one with Mel Brooks, and I was thinking you've gotten to say more today than you got to say in a 90-minute one-on-one with Mel Brooks. So
I only do that just so I can be near him.
it was he can still spin a yarn. And then just last thing, since the Emmys are Sunday night, and I assume you all have some, if you're willing to say, do you have a pick or a rooting interest in the drama category?
Fuck drama. I don't know if I made that clear before. They stole our comedy.
I had this whole run on watching porn that Vince took, and
We're happy for all of them.
I'd never say anything in public. I mean, come on, that's not fair.
Who's gonna ban you for that? No, I mean really, nobody wants to weigh in on that.
oh, I mean, who?
Yeah, who
Who should
like
win?
no, who would you like to see win? What's your favorite?
I
show in
think
that-
Breaking
in
Bad
that
is the
field?
greatest show that has ever been made. That's my opinion. I just find that I do, and I love Game of Thrones as well. But I love all of them. But when I look at Breaking Bad, is this amazing thing where, to me, I can't pick another television show that's done that. Certainly nothing I've been associated with. But it's never had a bad episode. Like, you can go, and I've watched it through a couple times. There's never one where it's like, oh, they missed the ball on that one. No, it's like every single episode is fantastic. I've never seen that done before.
Anyone else?
I'm 3 seasons behind on everything. But I like Sean Bean in Game of Thrones, so
Don't tell him.
That is a hip joke.
don't spoil it for me.
I'd like to see the 3rd season of The Wire win this year.
There's probably someone watching it right now. All right, well, that's all we have time for. I would like to thank our panel.